This was, again, a bit of a filler episode, or at the very least, a bit of a step down from the episode last week, because I honestly didn't really think the story this week was all that interesting. The Batch find themselves trapped in a mine after trying to get minerals for Sid, and they spend the episode trying to escape. Now, I am wondering, though, who it is that stole their ship. To me, it looks a bit like Hondo, but either way, we haven't really found out yet. This episode didn't really resolve anything yet. So maybe it's Hondo, who knows? This episode did have a bit of a Western feel for the first little bit, especially with the music. And the scene with the creatures stampeding was definitely very Western film-esque. And I honestly thought one of them was going to get killed by the stampede like in Lion King. That would have been interesting. I liked what they did with Omega in this episode, though, because this episode really focuses on Omega processing her grief. Because remember, she is still very young, at least relatively young, considering the clones, rapidly age. But compared to the others, she's still technically a child, and she's being thrust into all these adventures kind of against her will, sort of. Like, at first it was all fun, she loved it, but now Echo, who was her best friend and essentially her brother, is now gone because he chose to stay behind with Rex last week. And this episode really focuses on how she doesn't really know how to process that grief because this is her first, really big loss. This is a moment that just absolutely shattered her, as we saw at the end of last week's episode. And there was just this nice little moment where Omega wanders off at the mines alone to just be alone and let her feelings out. And it definitely helps the audience to connect with her more. And she had a really nice little scene with Tech, where Tech admits, yes, he misses Echo too. And what stood out to me about this scene is Tech's tone of voice. Tech's tone of voice is usually very intelligent, matter-of-fact, very much like Donatello from Ninja Turtles. But in this scene, he definitely showed a lot more emotion, a lot more vulnerability. That was really great voice acting. Thanks to D. Bradley Baker. He really knows how to do this. And unfortunately, by the end of the episode, the Batch does not make it out of the way. So, now, remember how a few episodes ago, the Batch was warned about how Sid's loyalties might shift? I'm wondering if this is starting to sort of be a payoff to that. Because she didn't really... It seemed like she didn't really care that they were trapped. She's like, yeah, okay, I'll get around to when I get around to it. So now, my biggest issue so far is we're halfway through the season already. And it doesn't really feel like it's going anywhere. Usually by this point, you know kind of what the end goal is going to be, where the show kind of has a direction where it's going to go. But most of these episodes all seem pretty one and done without any real direction. And like I said, the story for this episode this week was not very strong. And I'm sorry. We're already halfway through the season, and I don't really feel like it's found its legs. Now, that's not to say that I'm not enjoying the season. These are fun adventures. I really liking these episodes. But in terms of a clear end goal, a clear direction of where we're headed, I don't know. And it just kind of seems like they're sort of making it up as they go along. These all seem like one-shots. So... But we'll see what happens as the season continues and if my mind changes, but it doesn't really seem like there's an overarching arc. It just kind of seems like these episodes are just kind of single one-and-dones. But we'll see what happens as the season goes on. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode, and I will see you next week.